Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Wednesday, 30th July 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China's economic policymakers are committed to maintaining consistent and adaptable policies in the second half of 2025, despite a slowing property market, declining exports, and structural imbalances, after a 5.3% GDP growth in the first half of the year. To address declining birth rates and an aging population, China has allocated approximately 90 billion yuan, 12.50 cents billion, for its first national childcare subsidy, aimed at assisting families with children under 3. China's finance minister has pledged to increase fiscal tools to stimulate domestic demand and address local government debt, building on stable growth and improved economic momentum in the first half of the year. China's top economic planner has introduced draft guidelines to tighten oversight of government-backed investment funds, emphasizing a sharper focus on advanced manufacturing and strategic emerging industries. Policymakers at a Politburo meeting signaled a dual strategy of maintaining policy stability while preparing for timely interventions, setting the agenda for the Communist Party's fourth plenary session in October, where the next 5-year plan for China's economic, political, and social goals will be deliberated amid ongoing tensions with the United States. China and Russia will conduct their joint C-2025 naval exercise in August, followed by their 6th Joint Maritime Patrol in the Pacific. The Chinese military plans to hold an annual naval exercise and joint maritime patrol with Russian forces near Japan next month. China held talks with representatives from Thailand and Cambodia in Shanghai, securing a commitment from both sides to abide by the ceasefire, in an effort to diffuse tensions following recent deadly border clashes. Small workshops in China are facing challenges due to workers' reluctance to accept low pay and harsh conditions, exacerbated by the impact of U.S. trade policies on export. The southern tech hub of Shenzhen is planning to introduce a stricter supervisory mechanism for debtors applying for personal bankruptcy to address public concerns over debt evasion. Police in the far western region of Xinjiang are seeking public assistance to locate a fugitive wanted for wounding 2 people near the border with Kazakhstan. Shanghai and parts of China's east coast are on alert for storm damage as Typhoon Komi made landfall in the city. Shanghai had also been bracing for a tsunami following a magnitude 8.8 earthquake off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Chinese paleontologists have discovered that ancient lamp shells may have used hundreds of bristle-like structures to social distance to improve their chances of survival. Turning to the United States, President Trump aims to revitalize U.S. shipbuilding to counter China and create American jobs, necessitating infrastructure rebuilding and workforce retraining. President Trump stated that talks with China on a tariff deal were moving along well, and that the countries would reach a fair deal on trade. The U.S. and China have agreed to extend a truce in their trade conflict for another 90 days, following high-level talks in Stockholm, Sweden. President Trump's budget bill, recently signed into law, marks a shift towards fossil fuels and nuclear power, reigniting debate over balancing the country's energy future with national security. In Taiwan, the country is developing a drone army to counter a potential invasion from China, viewing domestically produced drones as crucial for its defense, though analysts believe further development is needed. Finally, the International Monetary Fund has significantly increased its growth forecast for China this year, while also slightly raising global estimates as China diversifies its export partners and trade tensions between the world's 2 largest economies de-escalate. India celebrated the return of ancient gem relics linked to Buddha's remains, preventing their auction in Hong Kong. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, called the return of the Piprawar gems after 127 years a joyous day for our cultural heritage. India and the US jointly launched the NASA-ISRO NISR Earth Observation Satellite, which will detect subtle changes on land, sea, ice, and vegetation. China's construction of a massive dam on the Yarlung-Tsangpo River has prompted concerns in India regarding water flows, agriculture, and regional security. Turning to the United States, President Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on India, citing concerns over Indian trade policies and its purchase of military equipment and energy from Russia. Trump described this tariff as a penalty linked to India's BRICS membership and ties with Russia. The U.S. also imposed sanctions on Indian companies, including major petrochemical traders, due to their involvement in the Iran oil trade. Trump expressed openness to negotiating a bilateral trade agreement with India and intended to speak with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In Pakistan, the government dismissed India's statement regarding the Pahalgam attackers as replete with fabrications. Pakistan suggested Indian leaders should acknowledge their armed forces' losses and the role of third parties in achieving the ceasefire. Meanwhile, in Singapore, Ramalingam Selvasekharan, a 58-year-old Indian national, was sentenced to 14 years, 3 months, and 2 weeks in jail for sexually assaulting a minor girl. He will not be caned due to his age, but received additional jail time in lieu of 15 cane strokes. Karanjit Singh, another Indian national, was sentenced to 13 weeks in jail by a Singapore court for cheating and using forged documents in a job fraud case. Finally, the article delves into the history of the Maldives, exploring its 60 years of independence and the evolving relationship with India as India and Maldives reset ties. Russia experienced a powerful 8.8 magnitude earthquake off the Kamchatka Peninsula. This triggered widespread tsunami warnings across the Pacific, prompting evacuations in Japan, Hawaii, and Alaska. Though many warnings were later downgraded, drone footage captured tsunami waves flooding Severokurilsk. Structures suffered damage, including a kindergarten in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, and power outages were reported. The earthquake also triggered the eruption of the Klyuchevskoy volcano. Despite the widespread alerts, injuries remained limited. In a separate incident, Russia's defense ministry claimed its missiles struck a Ukrainian army training ground, resulting in the deaths of at least 3 Ukrainian soldiers and injuries to approximately 200 Ukrainian troops. Italy has listed Russia among countries exhibiting Russophobia. This action has escalated diplomatic tensions, with the Italian government summoning the Russian envoy to express strong disapproval. The specific point of contention is the inclusion of President Mattarella on Russia's Russophobes list, accusing him of anti-Russian sentiment. False information began spreading in the United States. Claims circulated online alleging that Oprah Winfrey denied public access to a private road in Maui during the tsunami warning evacuations following the earthquake off the Russian peninsula. These claims are not substantiated. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has voiced strong opposition to potential tariffs from the U.S., particularly under a future Trump administration, emphasizing his resolve not to be intimidated by threats. These concerns stem from Trump's announced intention to impose substantial tariffs on Brazilian goods, purportedly in response to a perceived political witch hunt against Jair Bolsonaro. Adding to the tension, the U.S. has imposed sanctions on Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes, who is overseeing a case against Bolsonaro, a move that Brazil has condemned as an unacceptable form of interference. Domestically, Brazil is evaluating a request from Chinese electric car manufacturer BYD to reduce import tariffs on semi-assembled electric and hybrid vehicles, a proposal that is drawing opposition from global automakers and regional governors who fear potential damage to the country's industrial sector and job market. Meanwhile, the UN Climate Bureau convened an emergency meeting to discuss the high accommodation costs in Belém, the designated host city for the upcoming COP30 summit, amid fears that these costs could deter participation from less affluent nations. Australia's government has passed a bill slashing student loan debts by 20%, a move designed to alleviate cost of living pressures for about 3 million people, erasing over $16 in debt. Meanwhile, the Queensland Productivity Commission has urged a revamp of the construction sector to address the housing shortage and prepare for the upcoming Olympics, suggesting the removal of best practice industry conditions from procurement strategies. The country faces ongoing challenges regarding Indigenous well-being, with Senator Lydia Thorpe drawing attention to the high number of Indigenous deaths in custody and the failure to meet crucial closing the gap targets, including those concerning youth and adult incarceration, children in out-of-home care, suicide rates, and early childhood development. Adding a lighter note to the news, scientists have identified a new stick insect species, Acrophila alta, in the high-altitude forests of North Queensland. This substantial insect, measuring 40 cm and potentially the heaviest in Australia, was found in the treetops. Author Helen Garner praised Dua Lipa for her selection of Garner's book, This House of Grief, for her book club. The humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate as aid organizations find Israel's airdrops and aid corridors insufficient to stave off widespread starvation. Restrictions on aid access are reportedly worsening conditions, resulting in a rising death toll, with children, the elderly, and the infirm being most at risk. Evidence suggests Israeli policies are contributing to the crisis, adding to the complexity. Israeli far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich is calling for Jewish resettlement in Gaza, claiming it is an inseparable part of Israel. Following Smotrich's statements, the Netherlands has banned his entry, along with another hardline Israeli minister. The Speaker of Israel's Knesset has also provoked further international discord by taunting the UK and France regarding their discussions on recognizing a Palestinian state, suggesting they offer London or Paris for its location. Turning to the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer's proposal to recognize a Palestinian state has been met with criticism from Emily Damari, a British-Israeli woman who was held hostage by Hamas for over 15 months. Damari has described Starmer's position as a moral failure, arguing that it risks rewarding terror. United Kingdom's financial sector is currently a topic of discussion, with HSBC CEO Georges El-Hedary cautioning Rachel Reeves against increasing taxes on UK banks. El-Hedary argues that the sector already faces the highest tax burden internationally, and further increases could hinder the UK's economic growth. Adding to the nation's challenges, the head of the UK's air traffic control company is under pressure to resign after a recent technical issue caused widespread flight delays. While the system problem has been fixed, significant delays are still expected. In legal developments, Palestine Action has been granted permission to challenge the UK government's decision to outlaw the group under anti-terrorism laws, actively fighting the ban. Turning to Ukraine, the parliament is set to vote on legislation designed to reinstate the authority of anti-corruption agencies. This effort aims to undo a previous decision that reduced their independence, a move that led to protests in Ukrainian cities after the initial bill's passage the prior week. Japan issued tsunami warnings and urged over 2 million residents to evacuate after a magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck off the Russian coast. This event stirred memories of the 2011 Fukushima disaster. However, the warnings were later downgraded. Economically, Japan's Ministry of Finance reported a record surplus in its forex special account. They plan to allocate all $3.2 trillion from this surplus to the fiscal 2025 budget. To prevent market manipulation, the government is considering stricter oversight to prevent spoofing in the bond market. Meanwhile, Nissan Motor Corp reported a $115.8 billion, $782 million loss for the April-June period, but expects to become profitable later in the year. The country also mourned the death of its oldest citizen, Miyoko Hiroyasu, who died at 114 years old in Nekatsu, Oita Prefecture. Canada is poised to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly, signaling a notable shift in its foreign policy and aligning it with nations like France and the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Mark Carney has sharpened his criticism of Israel concerning the escalating humanitarian crisis within Gaza. Meanwhile, within Canada, the manufacturing sector is facing considerable unease and uncertainty fueled by recently imposed tariffs, with some manufacturers expressing feelings of betrayal. Adding to the country's challenges, Canada is currently managing a measles outbreak, with the number of cases surpassing those reported in the United States, placing Alberta officials under scrutiny for their handling of the increasing infection rates within the province. Germany faces public anger as Taleb al-Abdul Mohsen, awaiting trial for a fatal car ramming at a Magdeburg Christmas market, wrote letters to victims asking for forgiveness. Meanwhile, German soccer is set for technological upgrades next season, with referees announcing VAR decisions and body cams seeing wider use in the Bundesliga. Globally, Toyota Motor Corp announced record sales of 5.54 million vehicles across its group for the first half of 2025. The company is projected to remain the world's leading automaker, outperforming Volkswagen et al. In Pakistan, German biathlete Laura Dahlmeier tragically died in a mountaineering accident on Lila Peak in the Karakoram Mountains when she was struck by falling rocks. The Cook Islands is celebrating 60 years of self-governance. However, a growing rift is emerging in its relationship with New Zealand. New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon will address Papua New Guinea's parliament. Separately, New Zealand issued a tsunami advisory after a major earthquake near Russia. Despite the warning and alerts, some people were seen on Takapuna Beach, according to Darren's chairwoman Tracy Brown. New Zealand's economy relies heavily on dairy exports. She noted that high export volumes can present difficulties for local communities. Thailand is currently experiencing heightened tensions with Cambodia due to ongoing border disputes and intense nationalistic sentiments. These disputes have manifested in armed conflicts, particularly around a temple located along their shared border. A ceasefire agreement, initially brokered in Shanghai by China, has been repeatedly tested, with Thailand alleging numerous violations by Cambodia and threatening countermeasures if the aggression persists. Concurrently, UN Rights Chief Volker Turk has emphasized the urgent need for both nations to fully adhere to the ceasefire terms to de-escalate the situation. In a separate incident within Thailand, an explosion at a fireworks workshop in Suphanburi province, situated in central Thailand, resulted in the deaths of at least 9 individuals. Pakistan is grappling with a complex interplay of economic promise and social unrest. The United States has revealed intentions to tap into substantial oil reserves located within Pakistan, with future exports potentially directed towards India. Currently, the U.S. and Pakistan are collaborating to choose an oil firm to collaborate with on this significant undertaking. Simultaneously, a wave of public condemnation has swept through the nation following the release of a video documenting the murder of a couple in Balochistan, fueled by accusations of infidelity. Tragically, in Pakistan's mountainous regions, German Olympic champion Laura Dahlmeier, age 31, lost her life in a rockfall on Lila Peak at an altitude of approximately 5,700 meters. Dahlmeier, a renowned biathlete, had achieved remarkable success, including securing 5 gold medals at the 2017 Biathlon World Championship. Malaysia is seeing a push for greater parental involvement in managing children's social media habits, with Communications Minister Fahmi Fadzl encouraging parents to actively engage rather than relying on devices as digital nannies. Cybersecurity experts are also sounding the alarm about rising cyber threats targeting the automotive industry. They cite vulnerabilities in threat detection systems and the risk of data breaches via smartphones linked to car dashboards. In a tragic turn of events, a 36-year-old man was apprehended following the death of his 6-year-old son, who was discovered strangled and buried near a road, sparking national outrage. The United States has finalized a trade agreement with South Korea, imposing a 15% tariff. Despite this, South Korea's leader hailed the deal for removing trade uncertainties. The agreement also includes South Korea's commitment to invest $350 in U.S. projects selected by President Trump. Moreover, South Korea will purchase $100 billion in liquefied natural gas and other energy products from the U.S. In other diplomatic news, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed his dedication to maintaining positive relations with South Korea. This commitment followed discussions between Ishiba and Foreign Minister Cho Hyun. Uganda is currently experiencing heightened tensions along its border with South Sudan. These tensions follow recent clashes between Ugandan and South Sudanese military forces. The initial death toll of 4 has unfortunately risen to 8 wide. Uganda's history includes providing military support to the government of South Sudan. Moving to Sudan, the nation is recognized for the remarkable generosity and hospitality of its people. Even those with limited resources readily extend kindness and welcome to visitors. Indonesia's armed forces are venturing into pharmaceutical production to supply affordable drugs to underserved rural communities. This move, while intended to improve healthcare accessibility, has raised eyebrows among observers wary of the military's expanding influence in civilian affairs, recalling past eras of authoritarian rule. Meanwhile, in Bali, a fatal cockfighting accident claimed the life of a local man, who was struck by a rooster's razor-sharp blade. The recent incident is the second such fatality linked to cockfighting on the island, fueling ongoing discussions and scrutiny of the controversial tradition. Italy recently saw hundreds of hikers evacuated from the Brenta Dolomites. Rockfalls linked to thawing permafrost from climate change prompted the emergency response. Shifting focus to diplomacy, Italy summoned the Russian envoy. This action protested President Mattarellas' appearance on a Russian Russophobe list. Italy strongly refuted any suggestion of anti-Russian bias. Cambodia is seeing the return of thousands of displaced individuals. These people are going home after nearly a week of border clashes. The situation is tense but improving. Thailand is also experiencing a similar return of displaced people. This follows the establishment of a ceasefire. The ceasefire is between Thailand and Cambodia. Malaysia has earned recognition for its role. It facilitated the truce between the two nations. This intervention was crucial in de-escalating the conflict. China also contributed to the resolution. It encouraged Cambodia and Thailand to peacefully settle their border dispute. The United States played a similar role. The conflict's root cause was a disagreement over the border's demarcation. The European Union is preparing to launch its new entry-exit system, EES, on October 12. This system mandates fingerprinting and facial recognition for non-EU citizens entering the Schengen area. Meanwhile, reactions to the EU-US trade deal remain muted. Critics suggest the agreement could have geopolitical consequences. They also worry it might increase Europe's reliance on the United States. Myanmar's ruling military has introduced a stringent new electoral law, threatening opponents of the junta-backed elections with severe punishments, potentially including the death penalty. The law criminalizes any action deemed to disrupt or oppose the planned elections, drawing criticism from opposition groups and international observers who view the elections as a means for the junta to legitimize its power. Critics face imprisonment under this new legislation. The Philippines foreign minister has signaled no opposition to Japan's potential constitutional amendments regarding its self-defense forces. Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. presented his State of the Nation address, emphasizing populist pledges and prompting scrutiny of their financial viability. Russia experienced a significant seismic event as an 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the Kamchatka Peninsula. The quake occurred at a depth of 21 kilometers early Wednesday morning. Subsequently, tsunami alerts were issued across the Pacific region. Chile was placed on alert following the earthquake in Russia, as officials assessed the potential for a tsunami to impact its coast. The U.S. also issued tsunami advisories, monitoring the situation closely for any potential waves. Seismic experts have warned that aftershocks are likely to continue for several months. They emphasized the unpredictable nature of earthquakes, stating that forecasting future events remains impossible. The Cook Islands, Fiji, and Samoa have all revealed their team selections for the Netball World Youth Cup. Tonga is currently in the final stages of deciding its junior Tala team. Meanwhile, in Fiji, Fijiana coach Owen Cunningham voiced his optimism about the team's capacity to enhance Fiji's standing in global rugby during the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup in England. Oi, I'm ready when you are. Please provide the news articles. Afghanistan sees the rise of female tour guides who are organizing women-only tours, navigating the restrictive environment imposed by the Taliban. Angola is grappling with widespread protests against rising fuel prices, resulting in a grim toll of at least 22 deaths and over 1,200 arrests. Belgium has escalated a war crimes complaint against Israeli soldiers to the International Criminal Court, drawing criticism from the Hind Rajab Foundation for not pursuing more assertive measures, which strains diplomatic ties. Bougainville, part of Papua New Guinea, is preparing for an election on September 4th, utilizing a single-day polling process, a method considered unusual within Papua New Guinea's electoral practices. Cuba, in a historic departure from its post-revolution policies, has leased farmland to a Vietnamese company, representing the first such agreement with a foreign entity after the widespread expropriation of foreign-owned land in 1959, aiming to boost its struggling agricultural sector. Guatemala is reeling from a violent attack at a funeral that left at least 7 dead, with Interior Minister Francisco Jimenez attributing the bloodshed to ongoing conflicts between the Barrio 18 and Mara Salvatrucha MS-13 gangs. Uganda's political landscape, according to opposition leader Bobi Wine, is further deteriorating as the country heads towards presidential elections early next year. Yemen is witnessing escalating protests for the 3rd day in a row in its eastern regions, fueled by public anger over continuous power outages during intense heat waves. The United States and China's recent trade negotiations have ended without a resolution, impacting Asian stock markets with mixed results, while U.S. futures experienced minor gains. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.